Welcome back to the Mina Show featuring Lenny, only NFL podcast. One of the hosts thinks Overshown, not just a linebacker on the Cowboys, is how he describes Mina Kimes. That's Lenny, who apparently feels that he's not getting enough screen time because he said
apparently
that one in.
The same jealousy that broke up the Patriots dynasty, threatening to break up the Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny dynasty. Wow.
Am I the Brady or the Belichick in this analogy? Don't answer that. It's the Patriots back on top. Whew. That voice you heard, if you're not watching this, is Mike Golic Jr., one of the hosts of Golic and Golic, here to help me preview Week 14. Great slated games. I started with the first morning ones, and I was like, and then I didn't realize banger, all in the second half. All massive playoff ramifications, too. So many of these games, just spinning it ahead. Colts, Jags, huge. Bengals, Bills, Steelers, Ravens, massive. Thursday night game is a big deal. We'll start there.
Thursday night game turned awesome.
Whew. Yeah. Cowboys, Lions. This feels like we're losing the football with the Cowboys right now. I was in Hudson. I'm in New York. Shout out to the Meadowlark folks, by the way, for letting me use Pablo's studio. And I was at the ESPN studios, and all the morning shows, like every chyron was like, the Dallas Cowboys are like back, and the Dallas Cowboys are like, and I was like, this feels like the moment where we all touch the hot stove. But let's start here, because so as always, we're going to talk about all the games. This is a game we're going to talk about in depth, of course. It's in Detroit. Matters. Yep. Are we buying this Cowboys high? We're only a few weeks removed from them losing on Monday Night Football to Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, lest we not forget, but I still think yes, because certain areas of this have felt sustainable for a while. The Cowboys, run game markedly improved this season. George Pickens, and what an unbelievable signing that's turned out to be for them. And then the defense that I'm sure we'll talk about, especially in this matchup with the Lions, where right now they've really struggled so badly that they forced Frank Ragnow to come and pop his hamstring at a workout to try and see if they could that made me so sad for Frank, man. How you pull a grade 3 in a workout for the team? You're either living with that or something in the workout really sent it. So either way, yes, I am buying the Dallas Cowboys. Specifically, I think in this matchup, to your point, good indoors for both, but I do think this is real for Dallas in some of the ways that we've talked about.
All right, so I'm on my keys up for the Lions, who are the home team here. And I think both sides of the ball are really interesting. I'm going to focus on the defense, though. Playing man coverage and blitzing Dak right now is a death sentence. That's how I feel. So I think that's you got to deviate from your tendencies, because it's not going to work. It didn't work against Green Bay, too. As much as I've loved this Lions defense, I think Kelvin Shepard has done a great job. The Packers absolutely cooked them in the red zone in man coverage over and over, right? And now you go up against a Dallas team that, has a 1-2 punch at receiver that very few teams in the NFL can handle. I don't think the Lions can in man coverage. So I actually went back to that Arizona game, Mike, and tried to remember, how did they do this? And the Cardinals, and this is sort of their tendency, so it wasn't far off from what they normally do, but they played tons of quarters in that one. They just tried to put a roof on it, lots of light boxes, basically let Dallas run the ball, tighten up in the red zone. Dak went 1 for 5 on deep balls, so that was part of that. But I kind of feel like with this Dallas offense right now, you just have to try to stop the bleeding in the pass game, because I just don't think many defenses are capable of stopping these receivers.
No, completely agree. That becomes the extra difficult part of man coverage when you've got not just, hey, one guy where, all right, we can roll coverage that way, we can put 2 sets of eyes on and bracket him, whatever we're going to do, even letting everyone else go when you've had, at times George Pickens looking like the number 1 receiver on that team. I know CD been banged up a little bit, kind of contributes to that. So I'm with you. You got to try and do that. And, saying force the Cowboys to just totally beat you on the ground, which they've looked capable of, like as I think enjoyable and impactful as any unit in football, what the Dallas Cowboys have been able to do, overhauling their offensive line, now completing it by adding Tyler Booker when Zach Martin retired this last year, been really impressive for them. So totally with you on that front.
Are you like, for your key for Dallas, are you looking at the other side of the ball? Because I think, so I talk about Detroit and through the lens of like, okay, defensively you can't be so aggressive, but I think their best chance of this is kind of moving the ball in Dallas, and also like maybe proving that the complete and utter transformation of the Dallas defense is not as much of a transformation as we think. Like, I think that because the Dallas offense, I don't have questions about. I think we all know at its ceiling, that's a top 3 offense in football at the moment. The defense, though, Mike, is still a little bit up in the air for me.
It definitely is, and that's why, for me, that is the side of the ball I focused on for the keys for Dallas. And it was that matchup up front. Surprise, surprise. Mike will talk about fat people today on the show. But I think specifically, like we talked about the Quinnen Williams ad, and I went back. I think I saw this note from Dan Graziano. Since week 10 in the bye, Dallas has the second most use of 5-down defensive linemen in the NFL, getting all of those guys, Kenny Clark, Odigizua, and Quinnen Williams on the field together. And it's like, all right now we've talked about the, cracking the foundation for the Lions up front, especially in that interior 3. And knowing Jared Goff has looked as pressure averse as ever this year, kind of wilts in the pocket when there is contact around him. Like, yeah, the receiving core, Amon-Ra St. Brown status, obviously massive. You're going to challenge that Dallas back end where I think you could have the most success, but that pressure up the gut that these guys could potentially provide, and just having extra bodies to slow down Jahmyr Gibbs, who's kind of what the whole offense seems built out of right now, especially if Amon-Ra is compromised. It seems like that group, if they're going to continue to try and get people to take the Dallas defense seriously, but also upend this Lions offense that can still, when protected and certainly when indoors, temperature controlled, all that stuff with Goff can be effective.
The Chiefs did have some success running on them. Quinnen is a monster between the tackles, and Overshown being back is impactful, but I still think with Jahmyr Gibbs in particular, you could probably run off tackle. You talked about the 5-man fronts that they've been running, and that was a huge, like, Philadelphia really struggled with that when these teams played. But I think Detroit can come up with some answers in the run game, even though, it has been at times up and down against better run defense. I guess I just question, like, is this really that much of a better run defense? I want to see it here because they went up against, like I said, the Chiefs ran on them pretty well. The Packers don't really have, so actually look at the team since the Quinnen Williams trade, who they've played. The Eagles, turns out, just have like an abysmal run game. The Raiders, we know, can't run the ball. So it's just kind of, I'm like, all right, this is, I think, the moment where we find out how actually improved this run defense is. The interior, like to your point, would seem to be quite a mismatch that favors Dallas. And so the ball's got to come out quick out of Jared Goff's hands. I'll be interested in seeing if Dallas and Matt Eberflus tries to blitz a bit just to keep Jahmyr Gibbs in pass protection, which is something that teams are doing more and more because he's not been very good, and it takes him out as an outlet for Goff. And Dan Campbell, coming up with some pressure answers, because that's been, it's felt a lot at times like this Lions offense over the last few weeks hasn't really given Goff the answers versus pressure when teams do that.
No, and that's really manifest, I think, in a lot of the issues that they've had on money downs. We've talked about the complete pendulum swing on 4th down, certainly as sports talk watching public. But I do think when you get to those downs, we've kind of seen across the league. I look back at the game between the Broncos and the Commanders, like I think especially money downs in the red zone, you're seeing a lot of teams throw pressure and just say, we're going to get hands in the face of the quarterback. We know we're going to force you to make a decision, and we're going to try and see if we can disrupt it any way we can. And so I think that combined with what you said about Gibbs, spot on.
Yeah, I should add, the injuries also take away from some of those answers, right? Like losing Laporta, maybe no St. Brown in this one. I mean, Jameson Williams was excellent against Kansas. He's been massive for them, but he's kind of all they got at the moment consistently, and while I don't think any of the Dallas DBs match up well with Jameson Williams, I think my question is, from Detroit's perspective, can you find a way to run the ball on this team? And I think they can. And then, on top of that, do you have outlets for Goff if the ball's coming out quick out of his hands? I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions offensively do find a way to move it on Dallas, but I just worry about them on the other side of the ball. It's basically a pick 'em because if Detroit's favored by 3 and it's in Detroit, I think this will. I like both offenses here. Mm-hmm. The Lions' injuries are making it hard for me to pick Detroit. If they had Amon-Ra St. Brown, I would feel a lot better about it. But you just aren't that many guys to. I mean, famous last words, right? And Isaac Tesla has like 80 yards or whatever, but.
No, I think that matters, though, in the critical situations you talked about. Like if you're Jared Goff and you're under increased pressure potentially internally and you're forced to make quick decisions, and now instead of St. Brown and Laporta, you're dealing with Tesla and Tom Kennedy out there and not being exactly sure where they're going to be in critical situations, like it becomes a little interesting. So I don't know where you stand. I'm picking the Cowboys in this one. I'm touching the stove.
Yeah. No, I think I'm going to. The St. Brown injury put me over the edge. I'm really interested in seeing how the Lions defense approaches this, though. I am. Because, the last few weeks, Cowboys offense has just looked unstoppable. And this being in Detroit, I think, it's not as much of a benefit, perhaps, for this part. I think Dak and it don't. I mean, it's just Blaze playing right now. Yeah. So Kelvin Shepherd shock me, come out with something like super different. I think he will. I know I keep saying that with him because he did against the Eagles. He played less man. Like he will mix it up. But yeah, you got to figure out something here. All right. I've got Seahawks. So I'm on Dallas too. Seahawks Falcons is me. Obviously the season is not going the way the Falcons had intended. An immobile Kirk Cousins against this Seahawks defense of gremlins. It's not a great formula, even if you probably have more success than Max Prosper, which I think statistically I saw was the worst performance maybe in NFL history, I think. Somebody posted.
It was close. I think our buddy Aaron Schatz over at FTN said that it flirted with like an all-time worst game. It's certainly by far the worst of this season, which man, going out in your first start at 300 times the Earth's normal gravity, trying to fight that force on the other side, I felt so bad for that dude.
I felt terrible for him too. I know. I have Commanders, Vikings, and JJ McCarthy skipping the Seahawks and coming back for the Commanders is very Stugatzian. All right, we'll get to that game. My key is for the other side of the ball. So the lost in the 26-0 beatdown of Minnesota was Darnold once again really struggled with pressure in that game. And it wasn't just him. I don't want to put it. I think the offensive line struggled a lot with Brian Flores was just throwing insane. I think he blitzed him 64% of the time. Oh. Incredible commitment to the bit. Sam under pressure in this game was sacked 4 times, went 1 for 7 for 11 yards when he did get throws off. Okay, so pertinent, because you're going up against the Falcons defense that loves to blitz and has a very improved pass rush. This Falcons defense is 10th in DVOA against the pass, 25th against the run. So for me, I think there's another opportunity here for Seattle. And I actually thought they ran the ball reasonably well on Minnesota to once again show that, the run game can be at least somewhat competent. It's not going to be one of the best run games in football right now. We know that, I think, at this point in the season. But as long as they're not a bottom 5 run game the way they were for much of the season against a defense like this, that's really important, I think. It's weird. I know this is this isn't even a fantasy point because I know it drives fantasy people crazy. But the whole hot hand thing with Walker and Charbonnet, I don't know if it's working. I can't find like the through lines here. It feels like every other game, one of them is more efficient than the other. But yeah, I guess Clint Kubiak, I feel like that's something he's got to figure out going into the playoffs, because this rotation I don't know if it's like the most effective way to run these backs.
I understand it in theory. Like Los Angeles has basically started doing the same thing with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum at this point, but they've both been effective. They're behind a much more impactful offensive line in terms of creating holes in the run game. So I'm with you, but you're absolutely right. I mean, we've seen at its height, like this Falcons defense, even against before the Colts started this like full kind of fall, that game was a great example of like, if you don't take advantage of the run opportunities and you give these guys a bunch, God, why am I James Pierce? Like, he's got no interest in playing the run. Like most of these guys, like Jalen Walker will do both because Georgia guys are wired different, but like he had no interest in trying to stop or play the run. But if you give him enough third down attempts, they're going to make life difficult. They got too many long athletic bodies on that defense. So completely agree on that front there. And then on the other side, you just hope Kirk Cousins survives. Like that's really all you can hope for. Because I just don't think an offense that majors in one thing the way the Falcons do has really any chance against the Seattle war machine you guys have built.
Kirk Cousins, we talked about him a little last week because he's under center now. Interesting. I am like weirdly interested in every Cousins game now between now and the end of the season, because he could like hypothetically be an option for the teams that need quarterbacks, and he looks healthier than he did last year. So it's grim. All right. You have Titans-Browns. Oof.
Yeah.
I assume we're both taking Seattle. Sorry.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Titans-Browns.
Titans-Browns. You were awarded 2 yikes for this game. I just kind of kept it simple with this one because one on the other side, like I understand Cam Ward is this year's kind of rose blooming through the concrete, especially recently.
What a beautiful way to put it.
Well, that's why I called Drake May from last year, so I was just able to copy paste that over to this season.
Well, that worked out.
Which,
that rose is bloomed.
Tennessee, it'd be great if you could have a coach capable of coming in, overhauling a roster, developing the young talent, and creating something around the quarterback. A guy like Mike Vrabel would be pretty good. Be a shame if you ever let him walk out the door. So, So despite that, and defensively, Jeffrey Simmons been fighting the good fight. Him and Devondre Sweat being out there together.
Good.
He's amazing. Like it's a joy to watch him, but it's also maddening. It's like the prime Grady Jarrett years in Atlanta, where you're like, someone help him and do this. So, but to me, it comes down to that really. Like I don't expect Tennessee, even with Cam Ward, playing better and doing so against some pretty good defenses, to really be able to meaningfully do much against a Browns defense that's so hell-bent on getting Myles Garrett the single-season sack record.
Okay, so we're at 19.
Yeah.
So this is my investment in the rest of the Browns season completely. I posted, because I did on Tuesday, I talked a little bit about why Drake May is currently my MVP, but that could change. That's, that's close. Myles Garrett should be the unanimous Defensive Player of the Year. It's wild to me that anyone would pick anyone else at this point. And it starts obviously with the sack production, but also just use your eyes. He's the best player in the NFL. And he's also on a defense that's good. People say, well, the record or whatever. I'm not picking, he's not MVP, because then my personal belief on this is that MVP, yes, record matters. You got to be on a team that's winning games. It doesn't have to be the best team, but it's got to be a team that's winning games. Offensive Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year, the unit has to be good. So that was my issue with Hendrickson last year, even though he led the league.
Sure.
I was just the defense sucks. Right? It's not about the team, and the Browns' defense is good. The team is bad, but the defense is good. So throw out that record doesn't apply. But, okay, so 19 sacks, 5 games left. I mean, this is happening, right? So we got the Titans, Bears, hard. Although Caleb holding on the football, you probably get one or, The Bills, these days. The Bills, that's going to be a really tough one for the Bills because the Browns have a good run defense. And the Steelers, unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers throws the ball too quickly for him to get sacks. And then he finishes against the Bengals. So I can't really find, 22.5, right?
Yeah, 22 and a half. So
Okay.
he needs 4 to break it.
Okay. This is a good I'd like to see 2 in this one. Just get 2
I was just going to say double digits this week has to happen. And to your point, like you named a few quarterbacks in there. They're going to pat the ball a decent amount because the Browns are going to give you no safe harbor anywhere else.
Josh.
So yeah. Well, especially like God, depending on what the tackle situation looks like for the Bills at that point. I know the backups went out there and balled this last week because you just got to run duo over and over. We'll talk about that, but
yeah, so can't do that on Cleveland the same way.
I think Myles Garrett does get 2 in this game. My focus is on the other side. Like, hey, the Browns got to just be able to run the football. Like again, Simmons and Tavondre Sweat are when now back both in there looks a lot better. But overall, the Titans have the 4th most rush yards over expected allowed this season. They're used to seeing this, like Cleveland runs into a ton of stack box looks and still manages to go. The Titans allow the 7th highest EPA per rush against stack box looks. So it's all right there because we see like they're not going to let Shedeur go out there and try and win them the game right now. The game plan is just swings and screens and stuff to try and keep him safe there and avoid the big mistakes. So the offense has to stay on time. It's got to create really easy opportunities. And, with what we've seen this run game become this season, especially with the emergence of the rookie whose name's escaping me right now in the backfield.
Sampson did some stuff too last. They ran all over San Francisco. They just couldn't punch it in. And my baby Fannin had the big play down the left sideline. It's a good throw too from Shedeur. Other of note though, like talking about Myles Garrett, Carson Schwessinger, the linebacker, he's got to be a favorite now for defensive rookie. So offensive MVP is like very obviously the rookie of the year, both offense and defense, wide open at this point. Anybody could win. So if Schwessinger comes away with a sack or a pick in this one, there you go, Browns. You get, maybe you're not winning games, but you're winning awards. This is a great draft pick. He's been awesome. He's been freaking phenomenal for them.
And I mean, stepping up, losing JOK and him having to step right into that. I mean, as impactful as any, you're absolutely right.
I'm taking the Browns here because of their defense, if it's not obvious from the way I've been talking about it. And I think they'll be able to run on Tennessee. How about you?
Same.
Okay.
They've got the one unit we can count on the field. I'll take them.
Commanders, Vikings. J.J. McCarthy's back. So that's my key here. J.J. McCarthy. It was like when I joked about the Dan Campbell choosing the Commanders game to start his play calling stint.
Yes.
Same thing. All right. So, jokes aside, this is your chance, dude. Show us something because it's never going to be a better spot than this one. The Washington Commanders defense is 32nd in EPA per play versus the pass. They have given them up the most explosive throws in the NFL. And I narrowed it down a little bit. When quarterbacks throw to their first read, FTN Fancy tracks this, dead last in success rate. It's just a quick game. They're giving up 8 yards per attempt. That's dead last. So, like, Kevin O'Connell, just give him the answers to the test because they're right there against this defense. And JJ, just show us that you can fill it in with the pencil here because you don't have to be creative. You don't have to be a playmaker here. Pitch and catch, buddy. This defense stinks.
Close your eyes and pretend you're back in the Michigan out-of-conference schedule from 2023 and just hand the ball off, get it out quick. Let's keep this simple, baby. Let's keep it – because, on the other side, if he doesn't and this game goes bad, in addition to all the injuries, I get they're not going to completely ditch him after this season, but is it basically like the Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson template? Do you have to go out and try and bring in somebody like that this offseason?
You should regardless.
Sure.
You should do that even if he rips up the Vikings. But I think the extent of the investment is going to be, Colts got really fortunate, obviously. Yeah, the names are starting to circulate. Little Kyler Murray action being thrown out there. In any case, I'm actually taking Minnesota to win this one. It's hard because Mariota was so awesome on the Monday night game, or Sunday night game, rather, that I feel like I almost want to pick him to do it again. I feel like, though, this is going to be a Mariota comes back to earth against the Vikings defense game. So, yeah, I JJ balls out, and then people say, see, you saw Brosmer, you saw him, totally disregarding competition. The narratives change. I don't know. I'm going to take Minnesota here. I think they get it done. I think when Kevin O'Connell comes up, I believe in him to come up with a good game plan for him.
I'll go the other way. I'll go Washington on this one just because
totally
it's
fair.
not like Mariota and company went out there and did it against a slouch. Like that was Denver's defense. Pat Surtain II was back in that game. And I think you saw like the full complement of Washington offensive weapons when they're still out there is a really impressive group. And I think Mariota is seasoned enough to help them out with that. You saw his legs pop up a little bit. So I get the defense is awful, but I don't know. I have zero faith in 9 at this point. Like that's just where I'm at.
It's totally fair. I love this. Like Mariota also is in like full effort mode. Like watching him, he is slinging that thing. I think he's got like, I was grabbing average at the target stats since like week 8 because I wanted to see Jordan Love, which we'll get to. And Mariota was right up there with
just letting it ride, man. All that gray hair makes me feel sad, too.
Sorry, I should check. It is definitely Mariota, right? Daniels isn't coming back for this, right?
Not that I've seen.
Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels may not play against the Vikings in Week 14. I just don't know why. All right, you're taking Mariota.
The hard T.
It hit me during the game. It's like when you were in Japan, right? You went to Japan recently.
Yeah.
It's like when you're a tourist in Japan and you hit the arigato really hard. That's what it reminded me of when you were saying it. Arigato.
100%. The overemphasis from the foreigners.
Okay. Dolphins Jets is you. Woo.
One of the few division games that's a rematch. Like looking at a lot of these division opponents that we talked about, so many of them will play like twice in the next month. This one we actually got to see earlier in the season. And by the way, like 2 of the more explosive run games in the NFL now with the Jets having Justin Fields back there. The stat that blew my mind the most, I need to find this and make 100% sure, but I think the Jets are the only team in the league that has started the same 5 on their offensive line the entire season. Wow. Which is like O-line continuity stats used to be my favorite. When I'll double check that to make sure. I thought I had that written down here.
Yeah, I mean that checks out with my memory of watching them and.
Oh yeah, here we go. It's the Jets are the only team in the NFL this season that started the same 5 players: Olu, John Simpson, Josh Myers, Joe Tippmann, and Armand Membu this entire season. And again, it doesn't apply because it's the Jets and they're so bad at so many other things, but O-line continuity stats used to be my favorite thing to look for when they tracked it on True Media, because almost always teams that made a deep run, made a Super Bowl run, it's an indicator of health that your starting offensive line group plays more snaps than everybody else, but also the benefits of a group that does see that much time together shows up a lot. So
should I be the a-hole who pulls up to First Take or NFL Live at the end of the year, pushes up my glasses and says, actually, Armand Membu should be offensive rookie of the year for really considering consistency over the course of an entire season? Will Campbell, you could also throw. I mean, they've both been really good, actually.
Yeah, but he's been injured. Like he'll be injured now for a little bit. So if you want to push the Armand Membu agenda, Mina, you've already been an honourary offensive lineman for a long time. So this would just secure your place at the XXL barbecue for another 20 years.
He is. I mean, there's been some games that have been flashier than others, but I very rarely find myself watching the Jets and thinking pass pro, which, by the way, puts them in good position for next year, right? Like This is a team, I wouldn't call them a quarterback away. They also need, receiver and all that, but at least the offensive line's playing well.
You got an offensive line and a running back who, like this game, I'd circle both these teams top 10 in runs of 10 plus going up against defenses that are both bottom 10 and runs of 10 plus allowed. So get ready to learn Breece Hall and Devon Achane in this game. The Miami Dolphins, for all their flaws, man, every time I get to turn on Mike McDaniel's run game, he just does so many weird things with spacing and where he puts his big skill guys and creates natural seams. And you only need a little bit for Achane given the explosiveness there. So I kind of let those two cancel each other out. And I'd said for this one, like we talked about the man coverage tendencies for the Detroit Lions earlier in the show. Like, Tua's gotten an overwhelming amount of zones so far this season. The one team that played him like 15 percentage points higher man coverage was the Jets earlier this year, and Tua did really well in those. So my key for this one was, can Tua beat man coverage again? He's struggled pretty mightily lately. Like, it's been a tough road to go as that run game and Achane have contained it. So he's got to step up big, beat man coverage in this game, because I don't see the Jets deviating much. Like, even after you traded away Sauce Gardner, they're still running man coverage at basically the same rate. So
last week a real good case study in winning despite the quarterback, Miami, and they ran the ball so well, and Mike McDaniel making a little case for himself as winning these games. Obviously they're not going to be a playoff team, but he's definitely the turnaround of the run game is genuinely impressive. I mean, the team is really a lot of it is scheme and the creativity, and you alluded to some of the things that they do with the eye candy, but also like they're blocking well. Like, they fixed the thing that everybody was begging them to fix for years, which is the run game and the physicality on the offensive line, but then the quarterback fell apart kind of simultaneously. So it's in a weird spot. I'm going to take Miami here. I believe in that run game a lot, and the defense quietly playing hard.
Yeah, I will go with Miami as well.
Okay, so I've got Saints-Bucks, which is also a rematch, of course, divisional rematch earlier in the season. It wasn't that long ago they played. Let me pull up the week, actually. Yeah, it was week 8. And so I went back and looked at my notes from that game, and it was a beatdown. The Saints lost 3-23. It was a game where I think that was the game where Rattler was benched. So you saw both Rattler and Shuck in that game, and both struggled. Yep. There's a few different directions you could go here. I'm going to focus on Baker, even though the Bucs defense I feel like when I think about this team in the playoffs, I do worry about some of the issues that they have in coverage and some of the vulnerabilities. But offensively, this just has not been the same offense that it was the first part of the season, even as some guys have returned to the lineup. And there's a few things you could point to in terms of like the reasons why, but I'm looking at Mayfield here. I mean, it was just interesting to go back and watch some of the throws he made in that game. And since week 8, Baker Mayfield has been 30th in DVOA under pressure and 30th in average depth of target. So he's not pushing the ball downfield the way he obviously, again. And so you got Luke Goedeke back, and the run blocking looks better. But Mayfield himself has been a lot more erratic over the last few weeks. And even in this game against the Saints, he did struggle a bit. They sent a lot of pressure at him. So I think, like, for me, this is kind of a benchmark game for this Bucs offense as we kind of head down the stretch, and the Panthers and them are kind of locked in it at the moment in terms of who's going to win the NFC South. Like, can we see a little bit more offensive consistency from the pass game? Because, I don't know, I just feel like this seems to be under-commented on maybe. Maybe it's because of the injuries, but, like, Mayfield was like an MVP candidate the first few weeks of the season. Everyone's talking about how great he was, and he's struggled as of late.
I'm going back to look now where it is relative, because this reminds me a lot of. All right, so the Rams game was 3 weeks later, so there were 2 losses in between that, so I won't totally excuse it, but like went into that one with the shoulder, it got beat up more. It's like eerily reminiscent of Baker's like waning seasons in the Browns, where he told everyone, I've got a shoulder injury, and then the Browns still gave him the heave-ho after that. And it's like, all right, he's not 100% healthy. Pretty much every meaningful skill player on this team has not been 100% healthy. You had Graham Barton starting at tackle to begin the season because Tristan Wirfs and Luke Goedeke were both hurt at different points. Like, it's just a group that seems so ground down at this point. Now Bucky Irvin's come back. Like, I heard you and Ben talking last week about like the explosiveness that he brought to this offense that wasn't there with Rashad White. And that does seem to be it. Like, there's no burst. And it just seems like they're kind of holding on a lot more than dictating terms. And I think part of that's just everyone's physically compromised.
Yeah, the receiver. Well, so the offensive line finally gets healthy, but then the receivers are hurt. It does. Different players have taken turns being injured. You got Godwin back, right? But Yeah, I think the run game is the other thing I would isolate. Like when we think about this team versus last year and sort of the biggest difference, they were just so unbelievably efficient running the football last season, and that just has not been the case. And that to me has a lot to do with the injuries, perhaps more than Liam Cohen leaving per se. But I'm going to take the Bucs here, even though I have liked some of what I've seen from Tyler Shuck, and I do worry a little bit about this Bucs defense. But I feel like, the offense, it's like, okay, everybody's finally kind of coming back here. Few, like no more excuses for Baker. I know he's hurt, but let's get the passing game a little bit closer to what it was at the beginning of the season. This feels like a good spot for that. All right. Colts, Jags. Big game. Massive game. You have the Colts here.
Yes.
So why don't you go first?
Yeah, this one, I borrowed a term that I used a lot when Kansas City actually beat the Colts, and it was like they've got to be so stubborn with the run this week. Like last week, coming out throwing as much as they did, even on the first drive, I was like, this is such a weird tone to set for me at a time where your quarterback's playing with a fractured fibula, clearly not himself, clearly not the same burst. Like the number one priority for this group has got to be keeping him out of third and obvious situations, because it's kind of the same problem in different ways that, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are having. Like when all of a sudden your quarterback, who's been so adept at times at using his legs to either get you out of trouble in the pocket or, less a plus in the run game for Daniel Jones this year. But it's just like, you got to spam this on early downs. You've got to give Jonathan Taylor every chance to go out here and pop one in a way that's been a little bit more difficult for them in this stretch of games. Like they're 2-4 against teams above 500. They've clearly hit the wall in their schedule where they've started playing better teams after the hot start. But I just think when times like that happen, you got to go back to your identity.
Yeah. How much do you think the injury, though, is restricting what they can do? Because, you're taking design runs, boots, some of the RPOs, like the playbook has to change a bit with Daniel Jones being limited physically. Like he could not run. You saw that last week. No. And so then you're going to get teams stacking the box. You saw that a bit last week. Like, do you feel that you still, even if, because the Jags run defense is okay. Like, do you feel, even if the Jags sell out to stop the run a bit, do you feel like the Colts could have success running the ball? Like when you watch the Colts run game and it doesn't look like it did at the beginning of the season per se, do you think that team's selling out? Maybe the offensive line is not as dominant, or do you think they just need to commit to it more?
I think some of it is commitment. Like I was surprised, and especially in this most recent stretch, like I referenced the Chiefs game because that one was sort of the most maddening, where you were watching the team with the far less explosive run game stay far more committed to it than the Colts, who game script had everything in their favor in time to go and run it in critical moments where they didn't, and put it on Daniel there. I'm with you. Like I do think especially this last week, like it seemed like such a feeling out process of what Daniel could actually do. Like you saw him even tripping out coming up from under center. Like there's just no push off that thing, and it's affected the way that he moves around. And so I'm hoping now, all right, there's a little bit more understanding of these are exactly what his physical limitations are that we're going to work through and just try and make that happen. And I think that clarity could probably help the O-line as much as everything. Like, this, like if you got to change up where the quarterback is or how he is, it's different blocking angles up front. If you've got to go to more gun runs because he's not as comfortable pushing off from under center or more from pistol, like all that affects things in a way that are a process I trust that group to figure out, but it's one that's a lot easier once you actually know and have kind of figured it out at real speed like they did last week.
On the flip side, I for Jacksonville, I wrote, like, can you keep it up in terms of getting pressure the way you have the last few weeks? Such an odd team. So, like, they're so funny. They're 28th in sack rate. And I feel like they always are, even though underlying pass rush statistics always like them. I feel like this has been the case with the Jags really since those great, like, Blake Bortles defenses, like, of, like, 2017 with the Jalen Ramsey years. But, like, in recent years, I feel like on paper, it's always like, well, they've got Josh Hines-Allen, who, by the way, has been ripping. I mean, he's been on a tear.
Awesome.
Went crazy on the Titans. And Walker didn't play, but you got Walker. And then you look at the advanced stats, and they're always like top in the upper half of the league in pass rush win and decent pressure rate. And then you look at the sack rate, it's always low. And I think if I had to pin it down one thing, it's usually just that outside of Josh Allen, they haven't found like a reliable. Armstead was also hurt this last week. But in any case, they're trying stuff. Anthony Campanile, the defensive coordinator, you can see him. He throws a lot at quarterbacks, since they started really hot with the turnovers and they fell off. But over the last few weeks, I think he's found a lot of really good ways to get pressure, different types of blitzes, simulated pressures, different guys coming and going. He's definitely trying stuff. So now you go up against a Colts team that has a quarterback who is hurt, who is struggling under pressure in a way he wasn't early in the season. And if you can get them into third and long, it's really having trouble converting. So for me, like it's, we always talk about the Jags and consistency from the offensive standpoint, but like, let's see some consistency from the defensive standpoint. Let's see a pass rush put together multiple good games because they're capable of it, right? Josh Hines-Allen is capable of it on his own. And so to me, when I think about like what would it take for, the Jags to win this division, which is very winnable, that's a big part of it. In addition to, of course, the quarterback showing some consistency.
Who are you picking in this one? I had a real tough time with this one.
I think I'm going to go Colts here. It's hard because I don't think the Jags passing attack, I think they'll be able to handle it. Jags still can't run the ball well. It's not a group of world beaters. Lawrence is coming off of a good game. Obviously, he's been very up and down this season. I actually thought the Colts defense played well, even without Gardner. I mean, losing Gardner and Buckner, we talk about that's big for this defense. But I actually thought against Houston, all things considered, they played pretty well. Stroud beat them with some pretty impressive throws, but I thought they were decent against them, and I think this offense can figure it out. I do. I think when we ask about the Colts, is this offense what we saw in the first few weeks of the season, or is it Daniel Jones struggling? I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. The skill players are too good for me to, you know what I mean?
Alec
and
Pearson,
I think also,
the year that he's had, been awesome.
I also think Texans games are so misleading.
Yes.
Is that I think it's going from playing the Houston Texans to playing any other team is like taking off a weighted vest, right? They choked you out. Oh, wait. They are unbelievably talented. There are so many plays where I was like, I talked about this with Dominique. There was a play where they got Warren in the flat and Alshire flew in from outer space to tackle it. I'm thinking 31 defenses, that's 15 yards. I think, and I don't think Daniel Jones even played that bad, honestly, last week. I think it's just, so yeah, I'm going to take the Colts here.
I'll take the Colts too, and for my to stamp my anime certs on a massive stage, it reminds me coming away from playing the Texans is like when Rock Lee took off the ankle bracelets. I don't even mess with Naruto like that, but that scene is just incredible, and it's what I think of every time, just smashing into the ground with all that weight. That's the Texans dropping off those.
I don't know what any word you just said means, but it seems right. All right, coming back, we got the big games. More big games. Let's get to them. All right, we're back. Bengals Bills. Really, this could have been. We could have spent a lot. We can't spend a lot. It's a big game. It's a really important game. Yep. This is it for Cincinnati. Obviously, every game Cincinnati has to win, and they can. So, I gave this one to you. I think there's kind of just one simple thing for both sides here, but I want to hear your thoughts.
All right. I'm very curious to hear yours. Mine, a lot of it, health is an interesting cloud hanging over this game. T. Higgins is still in concussion protocol, even though he's been limited and out at practice. It sounds like they're confident in him going. And I think if you've got him back on the field with how good Burrow looked last week, immediately coming back, him and Jamar Chase are great. The Jamar Chase Christian Benford matchup's going to be awesome. It's what happens on the other side with the combination of Trey White and Maxwell Hairston that we've seen against Cincinnati. And if T. Higgins is out here and he's that guy, then I think things become really interesting, especially if you combine that with Joey Bosa, who's week to week, McDermott said, with the hamstring, and like on a defense that has already been plenty banged up, doesn't get a ton of pressure, but has at least had Bosa like make big splash plays like he did last week as he's been miraculously healthy in that old pass rusher role that the Buffalo Bills have been chasing for the last number of years with Von Miller and now with Bosa. Like, I look at those and say, like, all right, if you don't have that, and I'm the Bills defense going up against Joe Burrow in this offense, that concerns me a bit, especially if you've got the two-headed monster back at receiver.
Question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Which of these teams has a better run defense, do you think?
I mean, at this point you could probably make it. Well, the interesting thing is, so before last week, I would have certainly said, maybe you give a slight edge to the Bengals in this, but Buffalo came out. Now it's going to be very different, right? We know the Bengals aren't going to come out with a.
Well, the Bengals have a quarterback who's going to throw the ball more than 60 yards, so it makes it harder to stop the run. Yeah. Well,
they've got that, and like they're not going to come out here with the jumbo stuff. Like I thought, especially looking back at last week, Shaq Thompson came out and was just lighting dudes up. Like when they had three linebackers on the field, he was just running downhill into guys' chests.
I'm really interested from the Bills' perspective in seeing if they play as much base as they've been playing, and if what we saw last week from the run defense was for real, because Thompson was unbelievable. And he got hurt. He was great at the beginning of the season, then he got hurt, and they were horrible against the run. He came back. Took him a second to get healthy, and now he looks healthy again, right? He's 31 years old. That's massive. I'm really interested, especially because more likely than not, the Bills are going to be in the playoffs and the Bengals are not. But if I can see the Bills put together a couple good, like, back-to-back good performances against the run, I'm going to have so much more confidence in this team. And last week was great, but this is the Bengals, the funny thing about the Bengals, right, is like all it took was like Joe Burrow missing most of the season, and suddenly they actually have like one of the best run games in football right now. Like they are running the ball really well. So this is a good test for Buffalo. And then on the flip side, the Bengals have an abysmal run defense. Their defense is not as bad as it was at the beginning of the season. They've really fixed some things. But the Bills should be able to run the ball on them, right? And that's kind of every Bills game, I feel like, comes down to, are you playing a team that you can run the ball on? They should be able to run the ball on Cincinnati.
Yes, and the one thing we learned from last week for Joe Brady and all the fire that he's been under is, man, if they find that opening and you give it to them, we will just line up with two tight ends to the right, and we'll run some version of duo or inside zone until you pass out. So I got to imagine that's kind of on the menu now. Like they had some Josh runs mixed in there too, but passing attack for the Bills is just so wholly inconsistent. I don't even know why you would try that if the Bengals once again give you that opening on the ground.
Yeah, the Josh runs are always this time of year. They start hitting that button more and more, especially when they get into the red zone. I don't do like betting advice, but betting on Josh Allen rushing touchdown at this time from this point on. The Bengals defense does play a decent amount of base defense, meaning 4 defensive backs on the field against heavier groupings. So I would also look for the Bills to play action, especially after what they did last week on the ground. I think, there'll be some opportunities through the air. But I like Buffalo here. I know I think both sides will be able to, I don't like Buffalo. They're favored by 5.5, which, well, I guess they're at home. But
yeah,
I think this is going to be close. I think both offenses are going to be able to move the ball on the other. But in Buffalo, encouraged by what I saw from the defense last week, the run defense, I'm going to take the Bills here. How about you?
I'm also going to take the Bills. I don't know, just still very impressed with how quickly Joe Burrow was able to come back and make that look like the vintage stuff. It's pretty remarkable what that guy's capable of.
Steelers, yeah, he looked really great. Steelers, Ravens. And if they have Higgins,
yeah,
I don't know. If Higgins plays, I don't like that Bills defense against them. I don't like either of these defenses, though.
No.
All right. Steelers, Ravens. This is big. This is Massive, massive playoff import. Okay, so I'm on the Baltimore side of this. You're on the Pittsburgh side of this. Both coming off of pretty embarrassing losses. I just feel like if you're Baltimore and you just saw what Buffalo did to Pittsburgh, and your quarterback's ain't right, and I don't know what's going on with him throwing the football, but it looks off, you got to take a long, hard look in the mirror and ask, can we run the ball the way we Ravens, like the way we have in the past? You go into this game, you're not like a duo team like Buffalo, but every player in the team needs to go into this knowing that it's time to block, because I don't know how you could watch what happened last week and not think, and also the expectation that the Steelers are going to change some shit up. So, because you have to, right? So they're going to, if they sell out to stop the run, you got to be able to hit the gimmies over them here. But you really, like, I'm watching the Buffalo game and I'm thinking, we got to, like, run the ball until they prove to us that they can stop it.
No, 100%. I on the other side for Pittsburgh, that's what I wrote down was like, hey, Cam Hayward, who was jawing with Josh Allen the whole last game, like him and TJ Watt were in the darkest place I've seen two veteran players after that game, because it's the most personal way to get beat. Like, it's got to be Cam Hayward and the D tackle group for Pittsburgh, which, still without Derek Harmon, their first round pick, which obviously sucks. But those guys versus, we saw Voorhees, we saw Emory Jones in for the Ravens last week, Faalele on the right side. Like, those guys can be had. It's a group that probably hasn't performed to the level they hoped they would there. And so it's got to be selling out and, like, make Lamar beat you with his legs and his arm, because right now, 3 straight weeks with a lower body injury on the injury report, I'm with you. Like, the amount of gimmies that I've seen Lamar miss at this point, because he just doesn't seem to trust his base. Like, when Lamar Jackson, like, hit his peak, like, I always go back to a couple years ago, that Rams game that the Ravens played, that really felt like where, like, Lamar took that next step going toe-to-toe with Matthew Stafford and was doing things, moving inside the pocket, using that to manipulate defenses to get down the field. Like, all that's off the table right now. There were reps where he was under pressure where it looked like Aaron Rodgers this year, where it's like a guy so unsure of his ability to, like, push, get back, get out. The burst in the open field's gone. Like, he had a couple of scrambles for it, but you have to dare him. Like, I can't imagine if you're Todd Monken, you're even going to bother calling much zone read at this point. Like, it could be a time release thing to where it's super obvious. But if you're TJ Watt in these ends, I'm crashing down, and I'm not worrying about that at all. Let someone scrape at the second level and pick him up, because I just don't think he can pull away from anyone right now.
So I'd like to see that, like, too, because he had one keeper last week where he actually looked kind of fast. And I was thinking, like, okay, physically and mechanically, we're all trying to puzzle what's going on. But if he is a little bit more comfortable, further he gets from the hammy, maybe there'll be opportunities for him. Because you're right. I think they're gonna just completely sell out, right? So to that end, too, like, let's get freaking weird, man, in the run game. Like, I want to see, like, a ton of misdirection. The Ravens do all that stuff. They do a ton of misdirection in the run game, right? They get you moving laterally, and then often Henry's the one going north-south. Give me both Henry and Keaton Mitchell in the backfield. Zay Flowers, But by the way, also, we're talking about, like, the Steelers DBs getting blocked, the corners getting blocked into oblivion. Yeah, they don't have anyone who's, like, Shaver's size, but the Ravens receivers can block. I've seen them all block. Even Flowers blocks. So you got to come into this and you got to empty the clip when it comes to running the football on this team.
I think that's a really good point, too, about the versatility you have to present, because part of the thing that was interesting watching how Buffalo hurt Pittsburgh the most, like, you run duo, you run inside plays, but part of the reason that's so effective is because James Cook's gear shift and plant from inside, like, he gets from inside to the perimeter better than so many guys around the league. It's so fluid. And Derrick Henry's many things. That ain't who he is. And Keaton Mitchell's not as complete a back. So you're right about the combination of the two kind of has to build that in the aggregate.
I like Keaton Mitchell with the ball in space a lot.
Yeah.
So he should be a big part of this because, he's not complete, but he has a second gear here that no one else does, and it's obvious, right? So, yeah, just get weird in the run game. For Pittsburgh, like we've seen now, the book is kind of out on this offense.
Yeah.
If you crowd the line of scrimmage, disrupt DK Metcalf, they don't really have answers through the air. Ravens defense is much improved. I don't think that they're, like the best defense. Statistically, it's crazy the turnaround since week 8. I don't know if that's real per se, but I think that they are definitely better than they were certainly at the beginning of the season. You saw, by the way, Ardarius Washington is practicing again. I completely forgot the safety.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought he was out for the season, so... Or maybe he was activated. In any case, I'm taking the Ravens here. I think that the offense will figure some stuff out, and I like the defense against Pittsburgh. How about you?
Same boat here. I can't trust Pittsburgh on offense at this point. Like, Aaron Rodgers looked peak old man after basically breaking his nose. You know how sometimes the old guys will have that cracked red nose. Just seeing him on the sideline like that, can't do anything against pressure at this point. It's tough the way he's going out right now, and I don't think that gets better this weekend.
Okay, Broncos Raiders is me. So Bo Nix, to me, I talked about the run game for Denver being a weakness. So that's something I would like to see, but there's a redemption opportunity here for Bo Nix, who, as you may have forgotten, was pretty bad. This was the 10-7 victory over Vegas was not even that long. What is it like? It was a night game, an island game, and that was after that game. Everyone was like, "Wow, is Bo Nix even like a guy who can win a playoff game?" And then he shows some improvement, and then he rips off some big wins. So we're back here, right? And going back and looking at he really struggled under pressure in that game, struggled with the blitz. Anytime he held on the ball for more than 2.5 seconds outside a quick game, it was bad. He went 9 for 20 for 113 yards, threw 2 interceptions. So, I think, I've talked about him a lot and the consistency and how down to down, it's kind of hard to know what you're getting here. But to me, this is a good opportunity for him to show some continued growth, and I'd like to see this Broncos team run the football better than they have with R.J. Harvey.
Lord knows they're going to get plenty of chances because on the other side, stoppable force meets immovable object. I don't know what the Raiders are supposed to do. Clearly the only path forward, and we saw the Commanders go at this, is you just keep spamming throws at Riley Moss until something good happens, either a penalty or a big play, because you can't. And it's I heard you talking with Dominique before, it's not like he's a bad player, but he's also just not Pat Surtain II. So that's where the football is going to go. And unfortunately, at times, that's not fun for him. But the Raiders don't have anyone who can do that. We'll watch Brock Bowers make a few more sick catches, but that'll be about the extent of it against this defense.
Taking the Broncos, of course. Okay. Bears, Packers. Whew. Here we go. This is it. The 8-3-1 Bears. Packers, take on the 9-3. That one is always going to kill me until the end of the season. You go first here. Bears. I just so much to talk about with this game. So interesting.
Yeah. If the Bears are going to win this game, and it's the most cliche answer in football, defense, you got to give me one. You gotta. This defense has lived off turnovers. The Bears obviously lead the NFL in takeaways. The Packers have only turned it over 7 times this season, but the Bears defense has nothing else that they can afford you really or count on there. So it's totally boom or bust in that regard. Because on the other side, it's a good on good matchup. I cannot wait to watch what Ben Johnson and this Bears run game have become against the Packers up front on defense. Caleb Williams, one of the NFL's premier sack mitigators against, what you've got in Micah Parsons on the other side in that pass rush. I can't wait for all that stuff, but it's the defense for the Bears that scares the hell out of me if they can't take the football away.
My point's about the Packers offense. So let's live with the Caleb Williams, the Bears offense versus the Packers defense for a second. There's a couple things I think I'm interested in. So one is just Caleb's just got to play on time because hold on the football against Micah Parsons is not a good choice. But the Packers defense we have seen has struggled at times with quick game They do play, they give you their zone defense. They give you easy completions underneath. We have seen quarterbacks like Dak Prescott take advantage of it. In fact, versus quick game, they're actually 29th in EPA per play. Anything over 3 seconds, that jumps to top 10. So, it's a reflection of there's still some soft spots on the back end here. So Caleb just can't hold on. They'll turn you over if you hold on to it. I know his sack avoidance has been tremendous. It's very different with Micah Parsons bearing down on you. The run thing is interesting, though. That I'm really interested in seeing if Chicago can. That's strength on strength, right? And the Bears' run game, it's really just like fun to watch right now. First of all, they lead the league in success rate. So when we think about Ben Johnson and his Coach of the Year case, and obviously the wins and the records speak for itself, but the degree of transformation and how fast he's turned this team into the Lions, essentially running the football, is pretty wild. And obviously they invested a lot in the offensive line. I texted you a couple clips. Drew Dahlman was kicking butt on them on the interior in particular, but they're all blocking really well, right? But it's also like everything, it is very Lionsy. There's some differences, some tweaks, but I think about it from the perspective of defense, and it just looks really, really annoying. Like it's, he brings in everything. It's all condensed, super condensed formations. It's 11 and 12 personnel, and there's a ton of motion. So he's using that to displace defenders, but also creating these favorable blocking angles for everybody. Everything kind of looks like split zone, but they're like kind of weird little variations. And then on top of that, the play action pass looks just like that. So if you're a defender and you see guys, you're worried about your pass responsibilities as well. And so it's quite a challenge for Green. It's a challenge for anyone, but it's a challenge for Green Bay offense that has been phenomenal against the Lions run game, right? So here you go. Here's the new Lions, in a manner of speaking. Can you stop it?
I was gonna say, like, I watching the Packers against the Lions and like Devontae Wyatt and that interior and just how immovable they were on some of that stuff. Who is hurt and that important.
That's big in this game.
I do think, like you said, this is also what we expected when they made the decisions they did personnel-wise about tight end. Like, if you've got tight ends, and especially with Cole Kmet, who's willing, like, is he a world beater at blocker? It's not Kittle, but, if you, like I always said, tight ends and running backs, I just need you to be willing. I don't need you to be great, because if you're willing, then you present enough problems the defense has to account for in the ways you described.
Yeah, the clip I sent you, where it was kind of like a weird sort of wham emotions in, and he really is just being a human speed bump there. He doesn't have to actually like block, but it works. It works. It's he did
his impression of that guy from the Vikings who has to be the doorstop when the Eagles tried to run the tush push.
I think it's Levi Rodriguez, I found out, who has that horrible job. I think it's challenging. So the other side of the ball, I think, is a little bit more of a mismatch. And I know I looked stupid last week saying, I didn't say the Eagles would. I said they should be able to run on Chicago, and then they completely, obviously, pooped the bed. So Bears fans, I accept. I take my L. They were not. The Bears defense, the mighty Bears defense, crushed. Turns out the Eagles offense is that bad. I'm still not a believer in this Bears run defense. And I think there's also just your point is correct. Like, they need to turn over Love, and they might. So that could happen, and I think that would be a big part of the formula for a Bears win here. But one thing I've loved about watching Jordan Love over the last few weeks, especially when Christian Watson came back, is just the return of aggression. Like, I mean, there was a point in the season, it was the Eagles game, obviously it was like cold and snowy or whatever, but like, I would look at his average at the target after every game and just say to myself, look how they massacred my boy. Because it was brutal, right? Like 5 air yards for 10. I'm like, this is Jordan Love. Come on. Gotta let the chopper sing. And they have been since Watson came back. And since Watson has come back, by the way, he is first in average at the target amongst all receivers. He's 10th in yards per route run. He is a true 3-level. You saw this, even though he didn't reel in. He only had 4 catches in the last game against Detroit. But they're using him all 3 levels. Even like they converted a couple of like quick outs with him. He's their guy against man coverage. Chicago plays a reasonable amount of man coverage. They play like cover 2 man. It's Dennis Allen. And but in that game, crossers, deep outs, digs. It's really opened up the Packers' passing attack again, which felt so constricted. They were kind of flailing with, they lost Tucker Kraft. What do we do? So the Bears defense, dead last in success rate versus throws of 15 yards or more.
Yep.
Just keep it up. That's my key for Green Bay is do not shrink against this team because I've really enjoyed seeing the return. Jordan Love was so good on Thanksgiving. So good.
It was awesome. It'll be interesting in terms of how the Bears force turnover and if they can compromise the deep shots at all. The Packers, since they lost Elton Jenkins in Week 10, 3 starting offensive line combinations in 4 games, which is kind of like par for the course for the Packers, too. I feel like that's always a group that's cross-trained guys, mixes up the bags up front. But Love has been pressured on 40% of his dropbacks for the 4th week in a row on Thanksgiving. Obviously able to overcome it, but like those tackles against Montez Sweat, who's been the guy that really is the one you can hang your hat on if your Chicago becomes interesting. So that could be the path forward. But the games they were talking about there were against the Eagles pass rush, the Giants, the Vikings, and the Lions. So like places that are going to stress you a little bit differently. So I take it with somewhat of a grain of salt.
Jordan Love's 4 games where he had the highest average depth of target were all wins. Weeks 1 and 2 and 11 and 13. The Giants and the Lions. Come on, just do it.
Mina, let the chopper sing Kimes wasn't on my bingo card today.
Dude, it was honestly just like so unpleasant for me personally watching those games where he was just checking it down. I hate it. I'm taking the Packers here because I think to beat the Packers defense, you have to have a machine-type quarterback, and I do think Caleb Williams is good. I think he's had great moments this year, but I just question whether or not he's going to play the efficient style. They'll be able to run on them, though, I do think, so it could be close. How about you?
I also wrote down Packers for this one, so I think we're a little ways away. Caleb Williams kind of going to be one of those quarterbacks that has to age into like where Josh and Patrick got, where they got comfortable making the boring plays, and he's definitely not there yet, to your point.
Run game, though. Whew. I mean, they're like up there with any in the league at the moment, right? I mean, I said they lead the league in success rate. So just to remind people, success rate is basically on a down-to-down basis how efficient you are. On first down, are you getting 5 yards? On second down, are you getting, I think, 2/3 of the way? And then on third down, are you converting? So it's efficiency accounting for down and distance.
What Jonah Jackson finds with Ben Johnson is unbelievable. Like, think about it. Had all that success, got him paid, went there, it didn't work out with the Rams, and so now you get him back here on a pretty good deal. Like,
he's so good.
Absolute chestnut checkers. He's been awesome. Him and Ben Johnson. Just the Christmas card exchange must be lovely.
The line is just kicking ass on the ground. All right. Rams Cardinals is you. This one we can be a little bit quick because we got 2 more big games. And for everyone who's saying I keep picking favorites, if you're watching this, it won't continue.
Ooh.
Not here, though. I'm taking the Rams.
I was going to say, as am I. This one, pretty easy. The Cardinals eliminated from playoff contention last week. Like, I saw, Jonathan Gannon murmurs about his job in the future there. Like, obviously, the Kyler Murray stuff went sideways this year. For me, it's just, can the Cardinals put any pressure on Matthew Stafford in this game up front? Like, we saw the Matthew Stafford turnover regression come hard last week. 3 giveaways, 2 interceptions. One was kind of but you knew that was bound to come anyway. Like, I think he broke Brady's streak for touchdowns without an interception at 28. But this year, Stafford, 28 of his league-leading 32 touchdown passes have come when he's not under pressure, and the Cardinals pressure at the 7th lowest rate in the league right now. So can you knock him off his perch at all? Because if you can't, the run game we talked about a little bit earlier with the Seahawks discussion. Like, they have found good footing alternating series with Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, like, especially for some two guys that run as hard as they do, taking some blows off them can really go. And like on the other side, I just don't think they're built to, party against what this Rams defensive front is. The maybe one caveat is big group of receivers, and Emmanuel Forbes kind of also had his comeback down to earth games. I thought he had been awesome for like a 3 or 4 game stretch there. And he got beat on a couple of the big plays and the, money downs in that game against the Panthers. So if he locks back in, this defense goes back to being one that's pretty hard to do anything against.
Yeah, he got a little greedy. On one of those plays, he was trying to jump it, and that's his thing. Emmanuel Forbes, for those who don't know, is like the career leader in pick sixes in college football. I think he has the most of any player ever, if I remember correctly. So he has fantastic instincts, but I do think the way the Rams play, you got to avoid giving up big plays on the back end. And I mean, the thing about Jacoby Brissett is he will push the ball downfield. So I just think, though, the Rams' pressure will be too overwhelming. Especially, I think the Panthers had so much success running the ball on LA, which is something I've always kind of been wondering about all year, is like who's going to punish this defense on the ground, because they're a little lighter on the inside, right? They've got great pass rushing defensive tackles. Linebackers have played well, but I thought like, a really good running team will be able to bring it to them. I don't think Arizona is that team. And I also think you talk about the run game with LA. I think they'll be able to run the ball in Arizona. So I think also they're embarrassed. They're angry. It's a bad formula for the Cardinals. All right, 2 more games, 2 big games. Texans, Chiefs. I'll go first. Chiefs, backs against the wall. Can they pressure C.J. Stroud without blitzing him? Is what I wrote. So I am not entirely buying into the Texans' offensive line and offense being fixed from the beginning of the season. I think competition has factored into it and whatnot. However, I do think they look competent in a way they didn't last year in terms of like picking up pressure and like you remember last year just felt like endless unblocked rushers. They couldn't pick up a stunt to save their life. And while they're not dominant this year, I think that they're better at it. Something I talked about with Dominique was how abysmal this Chiefs defense has been when they blitz. Offenses are simply picking it up, and quarterbacks are finding the holes in coverage. I actually just sent this to Orlovsky because, the blitzing numbers are insane for Kansas City. Like, they're the worst defense in the NFL pretty much when they blitz. So I pulled up zone blitzes because I was like, well, that's the Steve Spagnuolo special here. Like, they're so good at that. So they've zone blitzed 43 times. They've allowed 12 yards per play, and they've gotten 1 sack off of it.
Oh.
Just crazy. I'm interested. So the Texans play with pretty condensed formations. They're probably going to send corners a couple times. And, I don't want to count out Spagnuolo per se, but like I just feel like if they can avoid giving up big plays, and if they can find a way to get pressure without sacrificing bodies in coverage, they stand a better chance against, especially, by the way, you saw the Chiefs corners get kind of bodied by the big Cowboys receivers. Yep. These Texas receivers, I was thinking about this watching them against the Colts DBs. Nico Collins and Jaden Higgins, that's a big group duo. I don't like the idea of McDuffie and Watson against those guys in man coverage. So I think this one, just put a roof on it. Darren will run the ball. I still don't believe in the Texans' run game. And then just bow up in the red zone. This Texans team cannot score. This is Rivers McCown, who's a Texans fan who writes for FTN Fantasy, I believe. I saw him post about this. Texans have the worst red zone DVOA in the league at minus 38%. So, I like the Chiefs' chances in the red zone.
I would agree. Glad you brought up the Jaden Higgins point, too. He's been awesome. Like, everything you saw in college from him in terms of the basketball on grass ability to use his body against smaller defenders. So that combined with Nico, pretty difficult. My big worry and like my keys for Houston on the other side, like unsurprisingly, like we know what the formula against Kansas City is on offense. And going into this game, Josh Simmons had surgery on his wrist and is heading to IR, Andy Reid said today. Trey Smith's nursing an ankle injury that kept him out last week. Jawan Taylor had a triceps injury, so they had both tackles. And let me tell you, Wanye Morris did not have a great time last week when he got into that game. So, like, I don't know, man. I just look at that against what we talked about earlier with Houston up front. Like, the key is you got to sack Mahomes. Like, he doesn't get pressured much. They're like a bottom 5 team in terms of pressure rate allowed because Mahomes is so good at getting the ball out against that stuff. They've got those quick answers a lot. But, like, in terms, like, we've always seen the formula for beating Kansas City is sawing off the head of the snake. And this group in particular, with how banged up the Chiefs are at critical spots, should have a field day going after him this weekend.
So I want to pose a question to you about the Texans that I brought this up with Dominique because I don't want to be dramatic here, but watching this defense, it really is like, this is why I love this sport. You know what I mean?
That's why I lift all them weights.
Bro, I was talking about them on NFL Live, and it looked like I was crying. I was at the Texans defense, and I wasn't crying. It's because we were in Foxborough, and the wind was so brutal. My eyes were watering, and it looked like, as I was talking about Aziz Al-Shaair running down and check down versus the blitz to Tyler Warren and tackling him in the open field, it looked like I was getting visibly emotional talking about it. But, I mean, how can you not be romantic about football watching Will Anderson lined up as the spinner?
That was so crass and offensive to my culture as an offensive lineman. Watching what he did in the middle, I hate it. I hate that that's allowed, and I hate that defense just goes out there and makes those guys look like he's a freak.
The actual question, though, sorry, what do you do? Like, where do you attack? Because they don't have, there's nowhere to hide. That's what I think watching them. There's nowhere to hide. Like, they blitz. There's no obvious thing you can do. I have one thing, and I think it does matter in this game, but I want to hear if you have any thoughts on, like, what would you do?
No, because, like, to your point, like, there's no fish. There's no guy that you can look at and go, all right, that's the one that we're going to get over on, especially, I mean, the front seven, forget talking about the cornerback tandem. So, no, I think it's one of those where, like, it's a game that completely warps how you allocate resources up front, and especially with backups in there. Like, you cannot have a play, especially on a critical down, where you've got less than 4 hands hitting both of those guys on the edge for sure. Yeah. But to your point, like, once you put Will inside, it compromises so many of your rules and protection about how you're going to do that, especially if you want to involve running backs, tight ends, all these different ways. Like, D'Amico Ryans and this group have done such a good job of trying to insulate those guys in critical moments from those kind of things that you normally do in protection. And, you know, Andy Reid's always someone, like, you know, we've talked about in the past, like, doesn't always do a lot to help those guys in ways that people think they should. So I don't really know.
That's the other thing, too. Like, okay, you want to help out your tackles against these horrifying monsters. Cool. Now you have 3 guys running routes, and, they don't even need extra people to cover them because they have guys who can man them up. So it's like, football is very much about numbers, and they have a numbers advantage across the board because none of their players need help, and they all command, and then up front they command extra attention. It's kind of it's like a math problem that's impossible to solve. That's how I would describe this defense. I started in a cool way and I made it nerdy. Also, man, every time like they make a play, the camera cuts to D'Amico Ryans. And I'm like, I just want someone to believe in me as much as D'Amico Ryans believes in, like, Kalen Bullock or whoever he's giving a high five. I would kill for one of those high fives. He's so jacked after every play. He's jacked too, but after every play. Yeah, physically. The thing I said that I would do is I still think quarterbacks can run on them structurally. Because of, like, the way they play, and this has been an issue with them for a couple years. So wouldn't be surprised if Mahomes' legs big factor in this one, as they tend to be in gotta have it games. But I'm saying it. I'm going Houston here. I can't bet against this defense right now. I can't.
I just want it for the record, like I'm not just following here. I have it written down in my notes that the pick was Houston. Because again, like I don't know how many times I need to see it, like all the Mahomes and Chiefs belief in the world.
Yeah.
We know what beats them. And it's exactly the Houston Texans and the way that they're formulated up front right now against them. So and also you talking about the Texans defense made me think of the meme you posted of how Pats fans look at Drake May. That picture of you on the field is how you look at the Houston Texans defense.
I mean, everybody should look at them that way. The other thing I would say, if Chris Jones goes crazy, they had a chance. I think that's, I talked about the pressure before. I should have mentioned that there. I like that matchup, Chris Jones against this Houston, the interior of the offensive line. And, there, like the Colts game, he went absolutely nuclear.
Yes.
Need that to happen again. You need your two best players.
Yeah.
The problem
Karlaftis show up at all?
I was just about to say the problem is Chris Jones doesn't even have help. So if I'm the Texans, I'm just doubling and tripling him constantly. All right, final game, Eagles-Chargers in LA. The reeling Philadelphia Eagles. I keep saying reeling, but that's an accurate word to describe them. The Chargers, whose quarterback just broke his left hand.
Dear God.
He is like bad luck Brian. Let me double check. I think he's playing, but I'm gonna double check. Trey Lance is their backup. He's day to day. Yeah,
he's gonna play.
All right. Well, is my key for Chargers the same regardless of who plays? They gotta run the ball on Philly. So the Bears, what they did to Philadelphia is unique because I think that we talked about it. They're like the best running team in football. But the Eagles' run defense has been very gettable this year. They're 26th in success rate versus the run, and they're just average in EPA per play. Some of that is by design. They play with the highest light box rate in the NFL. But your Chargers team with their injured quarterback, an okay group of receivers. They ran the ball well last week. Kimani Vidal, 25 carries, 5 yards a clip on Vegas. I think Omarion Hampton might be back for this one. Something to monitor.
I was just going to say, I think I'd heard rumblings of that this week. So,
I mean, it's just, you don't want this. I mean, given the way the Eagles offense is playing, I'm not going to even put the word shootout in a sentence associated with this game.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of them controlling the game, controlling the football, limiting the possessions of the Eagles offense, making them play tight. And I think they can be able to run them.
Chargers have averaged 132 rush yards per game since week 4. It's a team that we talked about a lot last year that wanted to run the ball but just wasn't good at it. Has, even in the midst of their top 2 running backs getting hurt, Kimani Vidal deserves a bunch of credit for that. The O-line, who's done that with a group that's entirely banged up and devoid of its best players, deserves some credit for that. And you're right, the Eagles just, surprise, surprise, drafted the entire Georgia National Championship front 7 and then have proceeded to run what Georgia ran, which is a bunch of light box looks. The Eagles do more 4-2 than the mint stuff that Georgia ran in college, but it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I wrote down in this one, just in the interest of not making everything skew towards the line of scrimmage. We always talk about the Philly second cornerback kind of thing and that matchup there. You are in a game where Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey, both top 30 in yards among receivers. They're both over 600 yards. I saw the stat today. Keenan Allen leads the NFL in receptions on third downs. He's second best, the Chargers overall second best third down percentage in the NFL. The Eagles 25th in third down defense. So, yeah, I was just as surprised as you, but that always seems to be a place where, again, I don't know how you're going to have the time to necessarily do that because on the other side, the Eagles defensive front, since they added Jalen Phillips, has been one that's been great at getting pressure. And, the Chargers are obviously in hell with that right now. But if you can, we know that they've got 2 receivers capable of stressing the Eagles where it hurts.
So I think that this is an Eagles bounce back game because I think, I know I said run the ball and Chicago ran the ball, whatever. I do not think this Chargers offensive line can get the kind of movement that Chicago got on, even with the light boxes and whatnot. I still think, and then get into second, third and long, and it's open season on this offensive line right now with that pass rush. So I think there'll be more opportunities than there were against Chicago for them to get after the quarterback. Even if he plays faster, but I just think it's still such a mismatch to the line of scrimmage that favors Philadelphia. We should probably talk about the Eagles' offense.
If we have to.
Well, let's just try to, because these, are all broken records on the struggles, and they've been the same. It's the same stuff. If there's one thing you would like to see Philadelphia do in this game offensively that's realistic, that's something they actually will do, what would it be?
Oof. Man, that's realistic becomes the interesting part of this.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, I guess I forget where we've been in the last couple of weeks. I know season long it's been there, but Jalen Hurts in the design run game again.
That was one of mine. That was one of mine.
Breaking case of emergency. Like that.
Do it now.
We talk about that with these quarterbacks getting towards postseason time anyway. If not now, then when, Philly? Like go and do what Buffalo does with Josh this time of year.
Chargers, I feel like also I've seen them giving up some pretty big games on the ground. I think so. Let me pull it up now. It feels right in my head, but I'm gonna make sure before I spout off. Try to think of the running quarterbacks that they've gone against. I'm thinking about week 1, and I know that's a long way. Rusher position, quarterback. Yeah, I mean, I think it's been such a missing component of this offense in terms of changing the numbers for defenses and actually creating a little bit of uncertainty. All right, so Chargers, I was buying time for myself. Wow. The Rams have only given up negative 13 yards to quarterbacks. The Chargers, this is what I thought. Okay, so the Chargers have given up 369 rushing yards to quarterbacks, which is 28th league-wide.
Wow.
So
right, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. God, negative 13. L.A. Jeez.
Good Lord.
You always got to look at the schedule because so much of these things can be skewed by, all right, which quarterbacks did you go up against? The Chargers, I remember Mahomes ran for them quite a bit, but yards per carry, yeah, they're also bad. It's 5.7, which is 30th. So, anyways, that's something. Yeah, I think that Philadelphia could do is lean a little bit more into the quarterback keeper game. Chargers, we know with Jesse Minter is going to play a ton of split safety, so you're not going to have those, the same one-on-ones. Dallas Goedert, I would throw out there as a guy who you'd probably want to get going in this one, work in the middle of the field a little bit. I think the RPOs could be. I feel like I'm such a broken record. I'm always saying this with Philadelphia. RPOs, Dallas Goedert, quarterback run.
It's all the offense has right now, as presently structured. That regression in creativity from last year with Kellen Moore to now. It kind of doesn't give. To your point, you asked about realistic options. You just named them. That's what we've seen as the things that they can break glass on.
I'm still picking Philly here because I think the Philadelphia defense, the dominance at the line of scrimmage ends up being the difference in this game.
I also picked Philly. I just, my continued goal for the Chargers this season is that Justin Herbert just walks off the field under his own power, because that's really, I think you're the one that said the Chargers, when the coaching jobs came up, that it's like buying a great house that someone's been murdered in. The same thing can't keep happening across so many regimes and different players, and yet it does. It's always the Chargers O-line, and I just want 1 year for both of these tackles to go wall to wall, and just let me see what happened then.
The crazy thing is, it's not like, I'm trying to think of Houston, where you could point to and be like, well, did they invest in it? The Chargers invested in it. They drafted, they just have had horrible luck. Yeah, I do think the Chargers defense is a tough matchup for Philadelphia. Just the way they play, the style gives this Eagles offense trouble. I'd like to see Philadelphia run the ball too, but I'm never going to bet on that again. Backfired on me big time. But yeah, that's it for this week. Ooh, all right. I picked a couple underdogs: Houston, Dallas. We both picked Dallas. Famous last words. Mike, where can folks check out your work?
Yes, Golic and Golic, Monday through Friday, 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Eastern on FanDuel Sports Network, wherever you've got that. I also do a Notre Dame football podcast, which is very lively this time of year, considering we're in college football playoff territory. The Echoes, me and Jessica Smetana, who you guys have seen over on the Levitard Show. And Mina, I just got to thank you for the outlet to come here about a sport that feels so comparatively sane relative to the one that I live in college football.
Are you guys going to drop a podcast explaining whether or not Catholicism is in fact Christianity? Because that's the discourse I was seeing online today. If you don't understand that reference, I'm so envious of you. Otherwise, go look it up. It's some takes are being dropped about college football rankings that made me glad to be in the safe, warm confines of the simple NFL. I also have a podcast coming out later this week. We took a week off. Viewer discretion with David Dennis Jr. My TV podcast is back, and we are finally talking about my favorite show on television, Pluribus. And have you watched it yet?
I haven't, and this is the push I needed to go and get started.
Episode 1 is amazing. Episode 2, 5 is a little bit up and down. Still good, but episode 6 of Pluribus, which is where we're going to start because that drops on Friday. We're going to recap 1 through 6. Is my favorite episode of television, I think, of the last, 10 years. It is... and you're a Better Call Saul guy, right?
Yes, big time.
Oh, my God. Come on. You got to watch the show. It's so freaking good, and I cannot wait to talk about it with David. So check out Viewer Discretion wherever you get your pods. Thank you again to my friends at Meadowlark Media for letting me use Pablo's studio, which I must say is very clean and smells good. And credit to Pablo. And thank you, as always, to the people who make the show at Omaha Productions, Kirsten Sebecki, Owen Saylor, Jack Foster, Tucker Tashin. You can check this out on YouTube. You can check out other stuff I do on YouTube, and go follow the show on Instagram at Instagram.com/@MinaKimes, where I chose the worst year ever to do power rankings every week, but I am going to forge on and do my top 5. Mike, top 5. Picking the top 5 teams in the NFL right now is basically impossible.
Every week, number 1 loses. We do power rankings on Wednesdays on Golic, and every week it is an absolute battle. So you are God's strongest soldier this year.
All right. I will see you guys on Tuesday.
Wow!